Hey, welcome to the show. Joey here, Jungle Brothers Podcast. You know the deal. Today, Paulie is back in the house, fresh from Fiji. I'm back from the States. This is the first episode I've recorded in quite a few weeks. And we're joined by Kyron, one of the coaches here at the gym. He's our resident guru mobility. And he's also recently defeated cancer as much as somebody can defeat cancer. He's got a great story to tell about that. And it's a real pleasure to chat with him and be able to share that today. Let's get into today's chat with Kyron. Brothers Podcast. It's good to be back with you guys. It's your first time, but Paulie, it's good to have you back.
So good to be here,
bro. Let's catch people up a little bit just on the goings on because I've been a bit lax with posting in recent weeks due to two main things. One, I took a trip overseas, which was like 10 days off, but also I had a little bit of a think of how I would like to change the show. We go too far into it, but that's just been what I've been pondering in the recent month. And you've been in Fiji.
Yes.
How the fuck was that, bro?
Fantastic. Yeah, it was awesome. Hadn't been in 5 years. Much needed holiday and really great catch up with family, time away to think and just relax. Yeah, I had a great time. And I won't wait another 5 years to go back.
How many times have you been there with your kids?
That was only the second time and Lucia's first time.
Is it, what's it like, you know, having gone like previously all those years as, you know, this is where my family is from.
Yeah.
I'm here. I can just do what I want. Now you're there. You got 3 kids. It's a different experience.
Yeah, it's different, but it's, you know, it's fucking awesome for them. I've been wanting to go back these last few years really to give them that experience and be the host for them in that way. Because it's just what you do when they grow up and you want to expose them to the rest of the world. And yeah, it was amazing. I realized how much Fiji actually means to me because I was born and raised here and I live here all the time and I'm in this headspace. But I didn't realize how much it's influenced me. I realized how much I knew when I was there because I was showing them all and actually reflecting on how much it's affected me as a person and everything that I think and do. And it was fucking cool. They loved it.
That's mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, there must be some proud moments in there as a dad being able to show like,
yeah,
whatever, like teach things that you're like, oh, this is my thing.
Yeah. Just trying to get them connected to it and give them the good things that I got out of it and try to get them to build their own relationship with it. So, yeah, boss.
Kyron.
Yo.
First time on the show.
It's exciting.
Also, just had a trip overseas.
Yeah.
Canada?
Yeah, I went to Canada.
What was the deal?
I went for a holiday just to experience it, do some mushrooms, do some hikes, catch up with some friends, go to a wedding. Yeah.
Was the wedding the event that took you over there and then you formed the rest around it?
It helped. It helped a decision because I always wanted to go and it just happened to be inviting me to their wedding. And I just thought I'd just do both. And for me, it was a way to celebrate going into remission and just getting over that chapter of my life.
The mushrooms different in Canada to the ones here?
You just have more variety.
Oh. Why is that? Climate?
Because it's decriminalized.
Okay.
So over there, you can go to a dispensary and they've got 7 or 8 different types on the shelf and you can just pick which one, ask like, I kind of want a trip like this or I want visuals and they'll just give it to you. And they kind of guide you on how to take it, how to put it in a tea, how much to take, when to take it. So it's just more organized.
Yeah, right. Is there any limit on how much you can buy or?
No, so you can get acid in the store, you can get DMT, mushrooms, microdoses.
That's fucking wild, is it not?
You can get mescaline, you can get pretty much peyote, everything possible is just there and it's full variety. They have a little cafe where they do like psychedelic shakes and teas and coffees. So it'd be like, oh, long black with some acid. And you're like, fuck, this is mad.
Sick.
Got one of those loyalty cards there. Maybe an email list. I like this.
Free trip. It's such a, like that just spins me out. I was in LA and they got the weed dispensaries and I didn't bother going in because I'm like, what, you know, people were giving, like friends of mine were giving me gummies and stuff. So I got to, you know, play with some stuff, but I'm like, I can't take anything home. So there's no point going in really. But I wasn't there for long enough. But that seemed wild to me, that the weed is just so, it's like free for all.
Yeah.
The psychedelics, like, I don't want to sound conservative, but I feel like you just end up with a bunch of people who are just tripping balls 24/7.
Yeah, I think in Canada as well, especially in Vancouver, there's really a big opioid issue. So the way the cops see it, if more people are doing psychedelics, which is proven to help with the actual addiction, it might help. So in their eyes, it's not an issue. It's like everyone can go get fucking high. But if you go to Vancouver, it's like there's such a drug problem with the opioid drugs that they're like, fuck, just do the psychedelics, it might help.
Has it only been decriminalised in recent times?
Yeah, in like the last 4 years.
Okay. Oh, that's a decent amount of time to kind of start to see the effects of it.
If you want to turn in a little bit, yeah. Yeah, just grab that thing and make it yours, bro. Yeah, yeah, that's cool. It's funny, isn't it? Because like personally, like I'm a fan of psychedelics. I've only had mushrooms a few times, but I really enjoyed them. And it's something I'm like, yeah, like I support the use of those things, you know, sparingly. But the idea that I could go into a place and just pick it off the shelf, and it kind of scares me a little bit, you know?
I suppose it's one of those things, like if you've never done it and you want to do it safely, would you rather go into a store and have someone guide you through it, or just buy them off your mate and tell them, oh, just take 5 grams, and then you freak the fuck out? So, and it's like they've got like the studio set up where you can kind of do it with a guide as well. So I think it depends on how you want to go about it. Personally, I love psychedelics, and I just kind of jumped into the deep end and figured it out from there. Some people might need guidance.
Great point, right? Like, you want to take it on the street secretly, buy it from someone you can't really verify, or buy it from a store where the person is as well trained as anyone can be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm in support. When I was driving to work on the first Monday that I came back, I got pulled over. It was the public holiday. I got pulled over by cops in Redfern for a breath test. You don't get breath tests that often. And the guy said, oh, we're doing a breath test and we're going to do a drug test today as well. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I haven't had a drug test before. And he pulled this thing out and he's like, oh, fuck. And I was like, drug test, what's this? He said, oh, we're using these new tests. He goes, I don't really like them that much. And I was like, what are you testing for? And he said, marijuana, ecstasy, cocaine. And I was like, fuck. Like, if you got me on the wrong morning, like, you know, I don't know, maybe a couple times a year, who knows what might be in there. Definitely, like on a weekend, I might vape.
Tainted supplement.
I might have, right? Just some creatine. That's all I had. Yeah.
I know. The vats were tainted.
But I was like, okay, so I said, what? Like, so he scrapes my tongue and puts the thing in. He's like, now we just need to wait 5 minutes.
Oh.
And I said to him, what'll happen if you find something? And he said, oh, I'll have to give you a fine and do that thing. And I said, man, like, having just come back from America, where I was in LA and Vegas, almost every single street I walked in Vegas, you just smell weed everywhere. And then parts of LA, you just smell weed, right? So the volume of consumption is really high. I'm like, and you know, like every second person I know here in Sydney smokes weed. I'm like, dude, are you just fucking handing out fines left, right and center? And he shook his head. He was like, I can't wait till they legalize this shit here. It's just ridiculous. He's like, most of the people, you know, we're testing people on the street, like pedestrians. And he's like, yeah, it's pretty silly. Yeah, super fascinating. Got the all clear, made it to work, live another day. But yeah, it seemed wild having that
Polarity.
Yeah, and that it really made me feel like that we're conservative about drugs here. I never really. Maybe if I went to a festival or something and you see all the cops there with the dogs, you're like, oh, fuck, we're militant on this shit. But normally I don't really think about it. But when he did the drug test as I was on my way to work, I'm like, and this just seems a bit over the top, to be honest.
So it is like when you do a festival here, it is militant. Like, I don't know your experience of them. Maybe I'm a bit younger, so I've got more experience. But there's always like 200 cops. You walk through, there's like 5 dogs. They're stopping people at random. I'm quite tattooed, so I'm always randomly stopped. And you even see them start to do like a little click to tell the dog to sit on certain people if you look like you have drugs on you. Because statistically,
follow you around.
Yeah, statistically, the dogs don't actually pick up the scent after a certain amount of hours of being in the sun and outside. Like, it's just kind of, that guy looks like he's got drugs. Let's fucking search him. And then there was the whole big issue with younger people getting cavity searched against their will because they didn't really know the laws behind it. So you had all these young people getting fucking finger banged for drugs. And then
They're actually cavity searching kids.
yeah, so it's like if you say, "Oh, I've got drugs on me," like they'll try to kind of coerce you into it. But now they're legal. Now they're allowed to go in there. But if you just say, "I have nothing on me," then they're not allowed to. They're not allowed to do the whole squat and cough.
Right.
Whereas Ryan, my friend downstairs, has had to do like the squat and cough and fucking get naked and spread his fucking arsehole. Like it's fucked.
That's so aggressive.
They're allowed to do that. You're over 18.
Maybe not allowed, but they definitely have.
Yeah.
And it's not all of them, but it is a pretty shit experience, and you have so much anxiety going into these events, and that's why everyone's popping all of the drugs beforehand and just overdosing because you just see them and you freak out and you're like, fuck, I have to
Dump it all.
now. Like, I don't want to be caught because that's worse than overdosing.
Man, we've had the same experience going into festivals, you know.
Haven't been finger banged before.
No, fortunately.
Just a finger banger.
Yeah. But yeah, and it's wild. You might get through and then all of a sudden there's like this tunnel and like this narrowing of the event fences, and that's where the cops will sit, and they'll just be like, you know, and you're like, oh, I hope the dog doesn't sniff me out, whatever. But it's absurd. I watch have you guys ever watch Vice News on YouTube?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
They got a few different channels, but they do one it's always the war on drugs. And I really like it because it's always just doing little sort of featurettes on drugs, and it's often like cartels in Mexico, what's coming in, what's coming from China, what the Colombians are doing. Like, it's always kind of sensationalist stuff. But everything you're watching there and everything we're talking about is because drugs are illegal.
Yeah.
Like, the whole reason that shit's going on, and you got these armed militias running around Mexico and, you know, decapitating their enemies and whatever, is because it's illegal. And so it's this underground black market thing. It's wild to think of how it might all change overnight if they're like, all right, whatever, decriminalized, legalized, I don't know, but something along those lines. Nods of support.
Yeah, I don't know how close we are to any of that here. I'm not really paying attention to
Canberra
it.
seems to be more progressive. So Canberra, like, they did the pill testing kind of little setups in the festival, so you can go and test the quality of your pills, because when someone overdoses, it's not the pill, it's essentially what they put in it. So whatever isn't MDMA. And Canberra seems to be, I think they put into Parliament, to decriminalise weed as well. So they're ahead. The rest of Australia's fucked.
I feel like it's a matter of time. Like, it's a generational thing right now, but it's heading in that direction. All the people that we hang around with, as you said, like, people are way more open-minded about the benefits for it and more accepting of it. Seems like it's going to be a matter of time.
Yeah, I think so too. That cop said to me, he said it's changing. He said they're going to legalize. He said like one plant per household, and you can harvest that and have you can be carrying that. So yeah, that would speak to the weed thing.
I guess what they always say is like, it's a matter of time. They just got the laws in place so that the powers that be can set up all of the companies and buy all the property so they can switch their business models, and then they'll release it all and they'll be ahead of the market.
Yeah, makes sense.
Dogs.
What was I going to mention on that? Something popped into my head about the drug piece. It doesn't matter. Kyron, you're known as the guy for three things: psychedelics, mobility, testicular cancer.
In no particular order.
That's right. You mentioned before remission, that it was a celebratory thing to go to Canada. Give us the backstory of the cancer thing for the listeners.
So do you want the backstory from like the complete beginning of the whole story? It's like, so the raw version is around pretty much a year ago from today, I was having intercourse with a girl and it felt like I got hit in the nuts. Like severely hit in the nuts. And I was like, I brushed it off, I soldiered on, I got through, got the job done, went home and I was like, fuck, what was that? So I kind of playing around with my nut and it felt like a little lump that hurt to touch. And I was like, maybe I bruised my nut, as if it's possible. Freaked out a little bit, went to the doctor. He's like, it's probably just a cyst, don't worry. So as a male, I stopped worrying and just left it for around 2 months, and then that little pea grew to the size of an avocado within like 2 weeks. And it got painful to the point where I was kind of falling over in fetal position and kind of holding my stomach because the pain was just too intense. So I went back to the doctor, did an ultrasound, and then they kind of said like it didn't look like anything sinister. And I'm like, it's a fucking avocado. It looks pretty sinister to me.
This is like a big swelling off the side of your
and
balls.
not even just a swelling, like it was hard.
Right.
So it felt hard and it was fucking heavy as well.
Yeah.
So it just always felt like getting sack whacked 24/7. Like someone was just like a little midget was there punching you in the nuts all the time, and you couldn't rest. And I think I just started coaching classes and like doing like hip swivels, and I'm like, my fucking balls were just hurting the whole time. Yeah. So then I went to the ultrasound, did that, went back to doctors, like, yeah, you got cancer, you have to do surgery within like 2 weeks. So they just kind of dropped the bomb, got put onto a surgeon by one of the members here. He kind of funneled me into the private health without me being private. So I got in really quick, had the surgery, was kind of back to normal within 2 weeks, back to training, back to coaching. Life was pretty much back to normal. My testosterone levels didn't drop, my libido didn't drop. So any of the things that you kind of associate with having two nuts didn't really affect me. My fertility was still high, like nothing changed. And then fast forward 3 months from there, my tumor markers, so you have AFP and HCG, they're your two tumor markers in your blood. So when you get them tested, they'll tell you if you've got a tumor or not. Mine started elevating because I was getting weekly or bi-weekly tests. And it started elevating, and at first they didn't really know what was going on because on a scan they couldn't find any tumors, but these blood markers kept elevating week to week. So it was kind of this limbo period of you have a tumor, but we just don't know where. So you're going to need chemotherapy, but we don't want to give it to you until we know where the cancer is. So I was just kind of in limbo, waiting for the day of it to kind of tell me you need chemotherapy. That happened about a month after they kind of told me that. The tumor popped up in my stomach lymph nodes, and it was around 20 millimeters in size, which they're normally around 6 to 8. So it grew double its size. And then within getting told that, they kind of booked in the first chemotherapy session, which was 9 weeks of 3 types of chemotherapy. So you had bleomycin, cisplatin, and one starting with E, but I can't remember the name.
Confirm this for me, just so I'm following. You had the initial surgery where they removed one testicle, and that took the avocado piece with it. But now you've got a regrowth of it, like a new tumor.
So I wouldn't say it was new. I think it already metastasized, which means spread.
Yeah.
So the normal kind of spreading pattern is it goes from the testicles to the lymph nodes and then to your organs and then the brain.
Right.
So if I hadn't have stopped it at the lymph nodes, it probably would have spread somewhere a bit more sinister.
Yeah.
And that was only within 3 months of me finding the lump to already spreading. So if I had left it for a year, I might not be having this conversation now.
Wow.
And that's, I think, the most important thing with this cancer is like, yeah, it's really curable if you catch it early. And most guys just feel really uncomfortable going to a doctor and getting a nut checked, whether it's for something like this or an STD. It's like you always have this urge, like, I don't want to get my nuts looked at.
They don't mind getting fingered by the cops at the festival.
Yeah, but it's like...
But they don't want to get their nuts squeezed by the doctor.
Yeah, it's this weird thing. But yeah, and then going back to that. So yeah, it was the same one. It already spread, but then they don't want to give you chemotherapy unless there's definite evidence that it has spread. Because let's face it, chemo's fucked. No one wants to do it. I wouldn't recommend it. 1 out of 10. But yeah, and then started the chemotherapy, which is for a cycle. A cycle is 3 weeks, and then you do that 3 times. So a cycle lasts 9 weeks. The first cycle, for the first week, from Monday to Friday, you're getting chemotherapy 5 hours a day. So you just go in, it's kind of like going to school. I get dropped off, I go in, I get my fucking chemotherapy in my arm. They've struggled finding vein half the time, so you're just getting poked like a piñata. And then you do the chemotherapy, and then you come out. And then the second and third week, you just go in for a 15-minute injection, and then you kind of start again after 3 weeks.
The 5-hour session is like it's just an IV kind of thing?
Yeah, so it's like intravenous, I don't know the word, it's just like into the vein. They find it, and it's like 5 hours just sitting there with this substance just going into you. Yeah. And yeah, that's that part of it.
And tell me, of the the common sort of horrible things about chemo? Is it not so much like the feeling at that time, but it's the side effects, it's how you feel outside of the treatment? Does that happen immediately, or does that come after some time?
So for myself, I'm this rare case where I didn't get any of the severe side effects. I don't really know why. I was waiting for them every day, but from the first week to kind of the last week, you don't feel initially sick, and you just feel kind of like a bit weird because you've got this fluid going into you that's toxic. So I was waiting for it to get really shit every day, but I was still coming into the gym. I was still coaching. I was still here, and I kind of had the mentality like, I'm just going to keep going until I can't. So my schedule didn't change. I had a pretty normal structure, and I didn't get the shitty side effects. But the main shitty side effects is like nausea, fatigue. Fatigue is the main one. So severe fatigue is 98% of people that do chemotherapy get severe fatigue to the point where they can't function. So they can't leave their house, they can't move, they can't eat. And that's kind of the worst one. And normally that can linger for up to 2 years.
Wow.
So you not only have to do like dynamics of chemo, then you've got this fatigue that you can't get rid of for up to 2 years plus. And looking into that prior, I was like, that sounds fucking shit. Like, I really don't want that. My job is energy efficient. Like, I'm here, I'm training, I have to do stuff. Like, I don't want that one. I also didn't want to be nauseous because that sucks. But I didn't get either of those.
Wow.
From there, it gets to a bit more external kind of side effects. So it is the ones that I got. So I got ulcers. From the first week to the last week, I had an ulcer in my mouth that just wouldn't heal. And it was really fucking annoying because you just can't do anything in your mouth. So it's just, it hurts the whole time. Like, food hurts, chewing hurts, like your gums bleed because it just ruins the lining of your throat and your mouth and all of those things. So that was one of the main ones I got. My skin got all fucked up and really sensitive. So like if you cut yourself, it doesn't heal. You get really dry and flaky like a lizard. And even now I'm still having skin issues 5 months on because it just ruins anything that regenerates.
Right.
So if your skin and your hair regenerates, it fucking kills it.
Yep.
And that's essentially that. And then it kind of goes into like, the main worst side effect for me was almost like a shell shock. So after my 5 days of chemotherapy, on 3 days afterwards, I couldn't really multitask. So I'd go into a supermarket and I'd get really overwhelmed and almost feel like I had an anxiety attack because I just couldn't function properly. Like, my brain just couldn't handle too many things at once. And that, for me, that was the most overwhelming one because I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this isn't normal for me. And that's kind of the worst mental side effect, or like the worst kind of mental physical. And then from there was more the emotional side of losing your hair, losing your skin tone, losing weight. Like, I lost like 8 or 9 kilos and I looked like skeletal. And I think the emotional side of things is probably worse than the physical for me because I didn't get the physical ones as much.
Yeah. Can you talk more on the emotional ones?
So it's, for around the first 4 weeks, I still looked the same. So I still had my hair, I still looked the same, had a mustache. And then out of nowhere, I thought it would be quite gradually, but your hair just starts falling out when you pull it. So I just woke up one morning and I was like, fuck, some of my mustache is missing. And I went in the mirror and I was like looking at it and just started pulling it out. I was like, fuck, this is weird. And then just pulled it all out because I was like, oh, mine is just going to fall out anyway. Pulled it out. And then I was like, oh, I wonder if my hair's doing the same. Pull out the hair, just pull it and it starts falling out. And you're like, oh, fuck, this is shit. And then that night I pulled it all out, shaved it off, had a cry because I was like, this sucks. And then that's when you start to look like a cancer patient. So now you not only are one, you, to the outside world, you look like you have cancer. And I think emotionally, that's when it really sinks in. Like, I'm going through this. Like, this is me right now, and that narrative now becomes a thing. It's like the outside. You don't have to explain I have cancer. It's like that guy has cancer. And after around 4 weeks from there, my skin color kind of dropped, and I was really white and pale. My face kind of went in heaps, and you could just see the bones in my cheeks. And then my eyebrows started to go in the last week, and that's when it got like, okay, I look like shit. And like, you kind of avoid looking in the mirror because you just really it's not you. And as much as I say, like, don't attach to things that you would identify with your personality, like it does suck to lose anything that you would hold value to yourself. It's like, I've always had that mustache, now it's gone. or I've always had thick mushroom eyebrows. Now it's gone. And it just really sinks in heavy. Like you just don't feel good.
Yeah, it's so understandable. I think there seems to be like something extra, like doubly awful about when something visibly happens to you, like to your face. I've had that in the past. Like I just had some psoriasis, but I remember it was in my hair and my face at a period where I was quite stressed, and I didn't care when it was on my body because I was just wearing a t-shirt and whatever. But as soon as you go and you're like, I think it's kind of built into us too, because all of a sudden everyone can see that you're unwell, right? Like in inverted quotation marks. You're not necessarily unwell. It's not like you're contagious or something, but it almost kind of makes you feel like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can't imagine like the degree to which you would have been experiencing it over that time. You were still in the gym all throughout that period, right?
Yeah, so from the first week to the last week and beyond, like I was here pretty much every day. So my chemotherapy normally started around 10 a.m. I would normally get to the gym around 8, do like an hour of training, an hour and a half, go to chemotherapy, and then sometimes I come back and coach. So I did that with the kind of like the plan that if I was to start feeling like shit, someone would be here to cover me, but it never really happened. And I think the doctors kind of put it down to the fact that I didn't stop and let it kind of overwhelm me. It meant that it didn't really sink in. And because I was moving, that was the best way to get the chemotherapy out of your system, because it goes through your lymphatic system. If I can sweat it out quicker, it's not going to do as much damage.
So that's the idea. It does its thing, and then you actually get
and
it
you
leaves.
kind of piss it out mostly. So like if you don't drink enough water, your bladder starts to burn.
Right.
Like it's pretty shit. But yeah, I was in here coaching, training, still quite physically active throughout the whole time. And now meeting the people that I've met that said that the studies that say that exercise helps with the side effects is really prominent, but no one's exercised as much as I have. So I have no studies on it. So I didn't really get too sick or fucked up from it because I just didn't stop moving. And I feel like it was very inspiring for the people around here, because they would come in like, oh, I've had a really fucking long day. And I'm like, I'm going for chemotherapy. I have a fucking IV still in my arm. And I'm here doing like weighted push-ups. And like, yeah, I still had because I left it in over the week. So I had my fucking cannula in my vein, trying to find ways to move around it. And yeah, it was just a weird experience. I wouldn't recommend it, but I learned a lot from it.
That time it was a very inspirational time, because every day you'd come in and work out, and every day we were like waiting for the day that you didn't come in or when you were going to message and need class covers. And this guy would just like walk up into the gym, and you just, because of the way that kind of you are, and you just look at you and you just kind of like shrug, like, still feel okay. And then he's there trying to work out ways to like, you know, do whatever around what the cannula in his arm and adjusting things. Yeah, it was quite incredible to just watch. And it was because, you know, we know you well. And I mean, it was amazing how you carried yourself through, and even how you speak about it now. Like there was a comic element of it. It was like we'd laugh about it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm still going. It's like, fuck, okay. Like I'll just keep on carrying on as I am until I don't feel that I can. And yeah, it was fucking amazing.
Yeah, it was very, for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people experiencing it from our perspective, it seemed quite light because you were positive.
That's
and
what I mean.
It wasn't like, oh man, Kyron's going through chemo. Like, because often, I guess the association is when someone's having chemo, you're like, fuck, they're in a bad way. Like, you know? And it didn't have that feeling with you. And I think that was really just because of, and obviously you were dealing with shit that I'm sure would have been much darker than that internally, but you didn't bring that with you.
Yeah.
You know? And so, you know, for better or for worse, it was super inspirational.
I feel like that mindset helped. Like I'm quite a positive person, and I was just taking it really presently day by day. And I was like, it's here. There's nothing I can do about it. It's happened. I'm going through it. Why be negative and upset when I can just be positive and try to make my day-to-day better? And even in kind of like the cancer wards, the people that were positive and kind of like, yeah, I'm here, I'm happy, like I'm good to be here, they seem to have so much more energy and be able to function, kind of talk to the nurses and have banter. People that came in like, fuck, why am I here? This sucks. Like they were sick. They didn't react well. So I don't know how much your mindset has to do with it, but to me, it just helped me get through it without kind of being caught up with, oh, this sucks. Like, it is what it is. Just be happy.
So where's it at now?
So now I'm 5 months in remission. I got another blood test in like 2 weeks to kind of check in, but no symptoms, no side effects. Like, my hair's back. It's actually curly. I don't have curly hair.
Yeah, your hair's lustrous and wavy.
Yeah, so that's new. It's also darker. My eyebrows are lighter. My mustache is lighter.
I love the length of your hair. I've already told you that.
Yeah, I think it works.
The Caesar look, I want it to stay.
And
If you squared the fronts, it'll be the perfect
Yeah, as
Zuckerberg.
soon as that goes
Don't
in.
square it.
But yeah, it's good. Like, I didn't really need to recover as much as, say, someone else would, because I didn't lose my capacity to move. I didn't lose my capacity to kind of go forward. I had to put kind of the weight back on. That's like 8 kilos. That's back. But yeah, hair's back. Skin's still all fucked up. Like, I'm really reactive to deodorants now and soaps. Never had that before. That's new for me. Like, I'll put something on and I'm fucking itchy all day. So I think it's kind of damaged that layer of my skin. But other than that, like, it should be good moving forward. Statistically, 1 or like 4 in 100 people will have a reoccurrence. So
4 in 100.
yeah.
Right.
So after the chemotherapy, it's very, very rare within the first 2 years that you'll get it again. And if you do get it, then it's another testicle, which is also really rare. So it is like, to get it, it's probably the better one to get, because statistically it's all right. But it's still kind of daunting, because you know within that first 2 years is the highest chance of it coming back. So it's like, in the back of your mind, you're like, fuck, like, what if it comes back?
Yeah.
And that's the scary thought. But other than that, I'm healthy, I'm good, I'm training, I'm coaching, like, still enjoying life. Like, the experience of going through chemotherapy at such a young age, or like facing mortality, is now I really appreciate and value every day so much more. Because without going through that experience, I would have just been kind of getting through and getting by and trying to get to the end. And now it's like, tomorrow might not be given. So why not just enjoy today as much as I possibly can?
How old are you now?
27.
Have you had much experience with cancer in friends, family in your life?
First for me, so no one in my family, no friends, no acquaintances. So like, for me, it was like I had no one to kind of lean on or talk to about it. It was like, oh, fuck, this is just happening to me. I'm that statistic.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about saving your sperm or something like that? Like,
So I did have to save my sperm prior to the testicle surgery. So now it's frozen in a bank somewhere in Seven Hills. Some of the little babies are over there.
Seven Hills is a good part of town.
Yeah. So I've got my 26-year-old sperm there. And I think after chemotherapy, you're not meant to impregnate someone within like a year or two, because
Right.
they can come out all deformed and fucked up.
Oh, wow.
So it's, yeah, and they get you to do your sperm before that as well, which I already had mine banked.
Is that why you mentioned Paulie? You're aware of that, of the sperm thing?
no, I just, you lost a nut and you're also having these kind of existential thoughts about life and mortality and stuff. And it just occurred to me like, fuck, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there something there that you might want to save? But also, have you had a tat since then? Like, how's that going? Only because if you haven't ever met him before or seen a picture, he's covered head to toe.
Got a bit of ink.
I haven't got one since. I don't know how my skin will react, because right now it seems to be really sensitive and tender. So like, I want one, but at the moment it's like I'm itchy everywhere. So I don't know what the fuck it is, but I'm just like, from head to toe, I'm just itchy. And I think the follicles are just coming back and being like, what the fuck happened? Why'd you do this? Fuck you. So yeah, not yet, but soon.
Going to that show soon, yeah?
Yeah.
What show?
Or I think Dylan wants to go to the Tattoo Flash Day at Lighthouse. So Ryan Usher's studio. And it's just...
down here in Banks Meadow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you just kind of walk in, they have a bunch of flash, and it's like a conveyor belt tattoo day.
A bunch of flash? What do you mean?
So flash is like a piece of paper with pre-made kind of tattoos.
Right.
So you just walk in, pick one, they bang it on, and you walk out.
So I didn't know this either, but they informed me because they're trying to convince me to go. Easy and counts. You just pick one that's there on the day.
What's the appeal?
Will you get in with really good guys which otherwise you'd have to wait 6 months plus.
Ah, okay.
And they're just, you don't have to go through the whole process.
And
You
is
just
there a
walk
bit-
in on the day and you get that one of 5.
That makes sense. Is there a bit of a status thing there too, where it's like, I got
I'm
that
reckless.
at the flash day. At
Yeah, and like
like
I'll get.
no pre-planning, just fucking chuck it on, bro.
I think they're getting one drop in, and they'll have like bands sometimes, and they make like a day of it. But they're working from like 10 a.m. to like 10 p.m. just smashing out fucking.
You don't want to be
tattoos.
getting that 9:30
Yeah.
p.m. slot.
The lines are all fucking wobbly. You're like, oh,
Do you like the tattoo, bro?
Get us another beer.
I love it.
My cousin who I used to live with in Bondi, Paul knows him, Ricky. He's a tattoo artist, and he taught himself. And I remember he started giving them. He's a mad hipster, and he started giving them out of the back room of our apartment in Bondi. And there was a fucking line out the door for like Ricky's, like just reckless, shaky, unpracticed tattoos, because there was so much status with it. Because it was like, oh, see this shit tattoo I got. I'm not saying this about the Lighthouse guys, but see this shit tattoo. I got that from this guy in Bondi who's not even trained properly, and it was full ghetto. And it's like, oh, that's so sick. So there were people lining up like, just throw something on me, Rick. And I just remember watching it being like, wow, what a, like this is like deep in the culture that it's got, typically you would want to go to the best person to get the best work. But actually the cool thing is to get the shittest work.
So the stick and poke girls or the guys, they'll just do like the whole little stick and poke tattoos, and they look like fucking shit, but there's got the stigma because it's a stick and poke. And there's even like paid ones now where you pay them like $300 and they would do this little shitty fucking poke of like a stick man.
You end up with something, yeah, right.
Yeah, and it's just like people pay a lot more money for it because like, oh, it's art, it's artsy.
It's got cred.
Did
you're
you
like-
go through that stage and
No,
you
I-
covered up?
I didn't do the stick and poke phase.
Okay.
I jumped straight in.
You got a few different genres though, I see.
Yeah.
You got a bit of sacred geometry, got a bit of spider, I see here with a geisha face.
So that's neo-trad is the name, neo-traditional.
Neo-traditional. Yeah, okay, of that style.
Yeah.
But then have you got, what's like your youngest, like, worst idea type tattoo?
So I've got a cover up my chest. Now it's sacred geometry, but it's all black. But before that, I was like 14 and a rebellious child. And I got like a love heart with fucking wings. And it looked like fucking trash. Like it was the worst tattoo. And it was on my chest as well. It was like covered the whole thing. And I was like, this sucks ass. And it does not look nice at all. So now I just got it blasted over all this black work. So that's probably the youngest one. And then I got into like the whole Japanese style. So I got this leg sleeve, which costs a lot of money. And it's nice, but it doesn't match the rest of the other styles.
But I'm guessing that's something you embrace as you go through different chapters with your tattooing?
Yeah, it's like people always say like, I regret this tattoo. I'm like, at that point in time of your life, you probably wanted it. So why regret it? It's almost like a chapter that you can kind of look back on and be like, I enjoyed this in that chapter of my life. And for me, it's just a way to look back.
Yeah, I think like if you set out with the goal of I'm going to like tattoo like 90% of my body, and you just went to one person and you were like, tattoo the whole thing in the one style and make it look perfect, it would almost be too perfect.
Yeah.
Like in a way, to have as many tattoos as you have, it has to be eclectic, doesn't it?
Yeah, over like years and different parts of your life. Like,
Yeah.
Unless you've just got 50K in fucking 2 weeks available to just sit down and cop it, which would suck.
But that would be so boring as well. Like they would
Some
like
kids
tell me a
do
story
it.
about it, be like, oh, I went to one person and they did it all.
People do it in Thailand all the time. Like they would just go overseas because it's cheaper and then bust out like 4 days of tattooing to do like 2 legs, 2 arms and a torso. But then it looks so generic. Like
And a Muay Thai camp.
Yeah, it's like how much guys you know with that same black and gray style where it's just like a person praying and you're like, yeah. Or like a lion and you're like, fuck yeah, I've seen this before.
Yeah. Or the family name.
Hey, stop.
What? What? I'm looking at
I was going to get, nah.
I do, yeah, fuck it. So there's so much like, so many funny little nuances to the tattoo thing. I do find it interesting to think. You see like a lot of white guys get like harking back to like their Irish English
Celtic
heritage.
days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, a Flanagan or something. And you're like, bro, from Campbelltown. Like, you've never even been to Ireland. What the fuck?
Oh, God.
Shout out to all the O'Flanagans who are
yeah,
listening
yeah,
today.
yeah. Clean
So
skin.
here's a question for you because sort of another facet of you, which is we touched on the coaching piece.
Yeah.
Kyron Mobility, right? The Mobes guru now here at JB's. There was, I think about when you first showed up to the gym and you did the coaches intensive with me and stuff, and I think about who you are now, and that you've come a really long way in that short space of time.
Yeah.
We were talking before, it was like a couple of years? Has it been?
I'd say I'd been here in this community for 3 years. I'm coaching for like a solid 1 now.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think I started here kind of January, but I was in kind of just shadows for 6 months before then.
Yeah, right.
So officially coaching for like 8 months, shadows for like a year.
So there's been a change in you, obviously, which is, this happens, we all evolve, but I feel like there's been some pivotal kind of big things there. I'm sure, and tell me about this, I'm sure the cancer was part of that, but I feel like a lot of it also preceded the cancer. Can you talk on that?
Yeah, so the cancer definitely was a catalyst to kind of take this by the balls and fucking keep going. Before then, I was working in landscape, I was working in solar, and I was just miserable and I hated what I did. And I came here, did intensive, did things like that, got a little taste. I'm like, I really want to do this. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm passionate about. The cancer was the kick in the ass to just fucking do it. And that was I quit the other job. I had no security here. They didn't even offer me like a full-time position. They said just be here and something might pop up. So that's kind of what happened. And then I found my way in here and stumbled my way through, and then it all came together.
A part of that story, though, that you're probably not telling is, like, did you not break your back?
Yeah.
Like,
Broke
the
my
way
back.
I broke my back.
Spinal.
Yeah.
It's broken.
So you're doing solar, you fall off a roof, you break your back, and you come in. But, like, and tell me how it all fits in the timeline, because
So that was around 3 years ago. Broke my back. I fell off the roof in solar. I pretty much fell off a two-story roof and got T-boned by the ladder. So I kind of got
By the ladder?
So I kind of got like baned in Batman when he like breaks him over his knee. That's kind of what happened to me over the ladder.
Sick.
That happened, and then I was on compensation for a year, so I couldn't work. I couldn't lift. Before then, I was just a gym bro. Couldn't do any of that without severe pain. Couldn't tie my shoes. Couldn't move around. Like, put on heaps of weight. Like, it was shit. 6 months kind of into that recovery, Ryan actually told me that there's this gym in Botany called Jungle Brothers, and they do like movement so you can train without lifting weights. And I was like, fuck yeah. I rung up Tiora. He didn't call back like 10 times and never got back to me. So I just kept calling. He finally booked me in.
We do that intentionally for the
Yes.
listeners, just to make sure they really want it.
yeah.
And I was like, fuck, you just put me on. Did my foundation with Tiora and you. And I just remember even looking back at that time, you're moving like a robot and it's not functional how you're picking up things, because I was like squatting down neutral, moving up. Like, I just had no movement in my spine then. I was tight, unfit, and it was shit. And then that's kind of my ticket into here. I started doing classes, kind of worked my way up from bodyweight strength to lifting again. Just kind of got mobility back or not back, fucking just found mobility from the classes here. And that was like my first step into this industry.
So mobility prior to the back was never really something you fucked around with.
And that's why I went to that story, because also, like, there was a big change or a spring of, like, ideas in terms of, like, training was for you. Because I think before, and I didn't know you then, but like you said, you were a gym bro.
Yeah.
So it was largely kind of composition or aesthetic training type of thing. Am I right? And then coming here,
Aesthetic.
you found like a whole other kind of thing to do. And like you said, you didn't know mobility. And obviously now you know how kind of rich and satisfying those type of training journeys can be.
Yeah, and for me, it was started the bodyweight stuff here and then a little bit of stretching. Like, it wasn't the main thing here, but there was enough to get started. And then through that, I was like, hey, this is actually making my back feel better. And I'm not as tight and I don't feel as shit. So I kind of took that and then went out on my own little quest and started learning bits and pieces. I kind of worked with Range of Strength. I worked with Emmett Lewis, worked with kind of Kit Lachlan, and worked with some other people as well, and just came back with all of this information applied to myself. And I was like, fuck, all my injuries are gone and I am starting to feel good. What if I could kind of compile all this information into a way where I could help someone else do what I did? And that's kind of how the ball got rolling. And I didn't mean to niche myself in mobility. It just kind of happened.
I remember in those early times, and I didn't really recognize it at the time, but you were here and you were training. Julian was here, and you guys were doing all those programs from those people that you speak of, like out on the deck or in between class times or before class type of thing.
Yeah.
That was the search and gather information phase.
Yeah, and I was like the little baby phase and just learning how to put it together. And now it's come to a way where I'm helping a bunch of different people with different flexibility levels just achieve things that they didn't think possible.
Tell me about the kind of what I touched on, but I want to drill in deeper to that sort of shift internally where you're like, all right, I'm gonna take charge of this thing here. I'm gonna make myself into this business, and I'm going to, because I think like what I noticed from the outside was a huge shift in like your confidence, in how you carry yourself. Even just like talking today, right? Like I remember when I first met you, you were just you just didn't seem as comfortable to talk. You seemed like, like you kind of said, like I was hiding in the shadows a little bit. Like I felt like that was a little bit characteristic of you. What happened internally where you, like, was it something where you're like a conscious thing, or looking back, is it just kind of how it's ended up?
I think it's conscious because I'm quite introverted by nature. And for this industry and my own growth and my own business growth and development, I kind of had to start getting out of my comfort zone. So that meant just talking to random people and just doing things that normally made me feel uncomfortable. And by just doing that kind of every day, like strength training, I think it's gotten better and better to the point where now I can conversate with you without being this quiet, timid, kind of closed off person. I think it's just made me more open, and like a skill, it's just getting better and better. And that confidence is just coming along with it because now I don't feel as out of place.
That's very cool. I think back to the public speaking module in the coaches intensive. What did you speak about? I can't remember.
I think I spoke about mushrooms.
I remember you were shitting yourself.
Yeah, I think I spoke about like medicinal mushrooms, so mushrooms that aren't illegal. And I remember I was just like reading this fucking paper. I was looking at the floor. I was like fidgeting. My hands were down here. It was shit. It was like the worst part. I was like, fuck the intensive. This is bullshit. I don't do fucking presentations. But looking back, it's like now I reckon I could do it without an issue. Just because I feel back then I didn't feel confident in my message and what I was doing. I was still kind of learning. Whereas now I feel like I have more to offer, and it's like I have the experience behind me now to confidently offer something or this information. And it just helps.
That's cool.
Yeah, you worked really hard at it. Like when I think back at it now, all the shadowing, like you'd shadowed tons of classes, as well as shadowing foundation programs, as well as just going in and starting to get in front of people, like however you can, in terms of like one-on-one group, like take whoever and whenever. Yeah. But it's shit, eh? Like I still hate public speaking, but I remember back, I was horrible at it. And I'm not great now, but I'm like a pro compared to where I was. But it's not until fucking you just have to do the reps, hey? And refine your own thoughts and messages and stuff like that.
And then even now, me and Ty are planning a kind of handstands and mobility workshop for lifters. And even before presenting in front of like a group of like 10 people, I'm like, fuck, that's scary. Scary as. Even though I can confidently say I know what I'm talking about, I'm like, it's still a daunting thought. You're like, fuck, that sucks. Like, hopefully it doesn't sell out.
Hopefully no one comes.
You're like, and then you're like, oh, it's that relief.
Yeah.
No
I
chance.
mean, I think it's such an interesting skill set, the public speaking, leadership, sort of group confidence thing. What's important and also maybe a little bit disappointing is that it's often very specific. Like you get really confident teaching classes, like, oh man, I'm good. I'm fine to stand up in front of people and run the class. But then, and I've had this many times, but then it's like, hey, I want you to make a speech at the Christmas party. And it's like, fuck, I'm shitting myself. It's kind of the same thing. It's the same people that you talk to in the gym every day, right? It's just a slightly different context. But then you realize, wow, like my adaptation to that thing is so contextual. Yeah. Of course, once you kind of break through that, then you realize, oh, I'm actually fine. And I have techniques, and it's not completely contextual. But yeah, it's like for you, this is the first workshop you will have run.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of course, man, you'll probably before you'd be like shitting yourself beyond, and then you'll get 5 minutes and you're like, this is sick. 100 people turn up, baller. Tell us about that workshop, but tell us also what you're doing with your work. Like we've mentioned, it's the mobility thing. Give us that kind of synopsis.
So that workshop, I think it's going to be November 26th on Saturday, and it's a handstand mobility workshop catered towards lifters in kind of CrossFitting or Olympic lifting realm. So we'll kind of be going over ankle, hip, spine, all of the areas where they seem to be super tight and stiff, and then just looking at ways to increase their performance or their efficiency in what they do. So we're still brainstorming it, but that's kind of the idea. And then what I do personally is I work with people that 40 years old, can't touch their toes, want to just open up, hips feel like shit, to at the moment lifters and kind of Olympic lifters, CrossFitters who want to increase their performance. They're kind of my two main areas that I'm kind of working in, as well as the classes and the partner stretching and all of that as well.
Sick. I commented on the partner stretching yesterday. I'm very happy to see the Boston Mud Crab has come back into fashion.
I was going to ask, what the fuck is the Boston Mud Crab?
It's an old wrestling move, like from WWE wrestling. When I started jiu-jitsu, I had a buddy that was always like, have you learned the Boston Mud Crab yet? And I never knew what it was, but it's the one where you're like, where the person's face down and you're like sitting on their butt with facing their feet and you're holding their feet and like leaning back and they're like, like tapping the floor.
It actually feels really nice when you do it.
Yeah.
Like, just getting really into those like external rotators. You're like, yes.
Man, can you, let's wrap it there. Can you give a plug to where people can find your stuff, where the channels are, where they can go, where can buy tickets for the workshop if you have that yet?
So ticket links will be on mine or Ty's Instagram, which my Instagram is Kyron_mobility. It's also the same for TikTok and YouTube.
Oh, TikTok.
Yeah.
Hello, how's that going?
I'm just like reposting what I would put on Instagram and just leaving it there.
Drip feed.
And it's just like maybe one day it will fucking boom and then I don't have to work anymore.
I love that.
I can just sit on the beach with tequila.
All of us. Take us with you.
Yes, it's definitely.
Man, beautiful. I'll put a link to those in the show notes. Man, thanks for coming on today. It's a pleasure to catch up. Nice to hear the kind of, the story behind what you went through with the cancer.
Well done on everywhere, like your story, like where you've come from, how you came in, and just fucking, it's been sick to watch. And when you sit back here now, I'm just sitting here like thinking about it. It's like, fuck, this is a really good A to B fucking story, man.
No, I appreciate it. And just like one takeaway message is just check your nuts. Check those nuts.
Check the nuts. Check these nuts. Is that the message?
Give me a takeaway message for like young coach, someone who's maybe where you were a few years ago.
Oh, do the intensive, do the JB intensive. You learn a lot, and it also just puts you out of your comfort zone a bit. And if you're a new coach in this industry, it's a good way to bypass the working for a shitty normal gym where you're just getting fed clients that mean nothing. Like I learned a big bunch of skills from marketing to coaches development, all through just being here. And just be here more. Like find a gym that you can just be at and be around and shadow and just learn off people. Because learning from your Cert 3 and 4, you learn fucking nothing. So just be around coaches doing what you want to do.
That's cool, man. Solid message. Thanks, homie.
Appreciate it.
Paulie, thanks, bruh.
Thanks, boys.
Fam, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please give us a like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. Check out Kyron stuff. If you are interested in the handstand and mobility workshop, definitely go over to his Instagram account, get yourself a ticket. And if you do want to know more about the Coaches Intensive, you can find that at junglealliance.com. Click on the courses tab and we have information there. Our last intensive for the year is coming up on the 29th and 30th of October. So by the time you're hearing this, it's only like a week or two out. If you are interested in that, you can book it through the website. And if you want to talk to me directly, just contact me through the webpage and we can chat about if it's right for you. Thank you. See you next week. Peace.
Peace.